She wants to be in too. Okay. Should we let Betsy in? Yeah, let's let her in. Do I have the Betsy Wolfe? We got Riley. We got Music Girl 786. Hey, Bet.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, friend.
People are joining. Sarah
I brought a
Rubio's here.
special mug.
Huntington Theater. I have that mug too.
You have that mug as well?
Of course, because we were there together.
We were there. That I know. Sorry, I'm trying to turn up. We were there together. Hi, everyone that's coming in. Oh, hey. Welcome to the Broadway Evolved Homeschool Edition headquarters.
Purell.
It is also known as my living room. Nope, I didn't have on these earrings before 11:59, but they are on for you guys, because let's just still pretend that we are enriching our lives and homeschooling, which we actually are.
Yeah,
but
and I think most living rooms should have a step and repeat like yours. Oh no, you're frozen. There you go. I know.
No, why am I frozen?
No, you're there.
This is actually in front of my TV right now. Welcome, everybody. This is Broadway Evolved Homeschool, and as you can recognize this gorgeous, familiar face that I've known now for, I don't know, like 6 years. This is Adam
The
Kantor,
last 10 years.
who has been a steadfast Broadway Evolved faculty member for 2 years, and hopefully he'll come back this summer as well. And yeah, Adam, it's Monday. I always like to start with, where are you? How are you doing? Who are you quarantining with? And how is it going?
Yeah, happy Monday, everybody. I'm actually in my I am in my childhood home in Long Island, and I'm quarantined in my bedroom where I grew up, and my parents are staying far away from me, and we're all sort of keeping an appropriate, social distance. And I've been here for about a week and a half, and I'm so grateful to you, Betsy, and Broadway Evolved for keeping folks like me and all your fans engaged this way.
Well, it is one of the few things that keeps me from going crazy as well. I think there's a lot of days where I have I have really good days and I have some bad days. And this gives me something to focus on, and knowing that all these students and educators, everyone's kind of in the same boat, but we have to keep going. We have to keep learning. I think that artistry will be needed more than ever before after this. I truly, truly believe that.
And live theater, right? Live events, people,
yes.
Being in the flesh. It's great to connect over the phone like this, and I think we're going to need that kind of live theater magic even more than ever.
Even more. So anything that we can do to be growing during this time, I think is going to be great. With that being said, we are going to cover a couple different things today, and I'm excited because we talked about some specific things. We have some great questions that you guys actually sent in ahead of time. So I have those listed here too, but you can always write in questions too there. I can read all the comments. But Adam, one of the things that I know that you and I had talked about is, and you're so brilliant at this, and you've done both contemporary roles as well as roles that are so clearly well established, like Fiddler on the Roof model. So I think it'd be great to just kind of discuss today a little bit about, how on earth do you approach a character? How do you approach a new character like the band's visit? How do you approach a revival that's beloved? And just kind of dig in. I know that's such a general thing, but start wherever you want.
Totally. I mean, I can also tell the story of how I got Rent, which I don't think I've told. It was the first show I did. It was my
we're definitely covering that too.
Yeah, because I was thinking about, so many of your students, so many of the Broadway Evolved students and your fans, Betsy, are in schools across the country, and Rent and Fiddler are like the two of the most produced shows in schools. And I love going out to schools and talking about my experience. I was in school when I was cast in Rent. I was a student. I had never acted professionally before. So it was, not only was it my Broadway debut, but it was the first show I was ever paid to be in.
Which in a way must seem super surreal because that's not really how it always happens.
Exactly.
So, like, it does kind of relieve this pressure. You probably didn't feel the pressure that you even probably feel now when you're opening up a show. So, in a way, it was kind of
Yeah.
like this crazy.
I also didn't have time. It was like being shot out of a cannon, you know? It was like, I
What was the
was,
timeline?
well, it was, I was in school. I was a senior at Northwestern, and then I auditioned for the show, and a few weeks later I started in it. So it was like I had to get to New York, learn the role so quickly, and just start. So it was like, that being said, I was freaking out, and I'll sort of go through the quick story of it all, which was, and I think there are a few lessons in here, I hope. um, when I was a junior at Northwestern, CBS was going around the country. Hello.
Someone just asked what my mug says.
Betsy and I did a concert of the last 5 years at the Huntington, and we got those mugs.
It's one of my favorites. Keep
The
going.
Huntington.
There's lessons in you getting cast in Rent. Let's hear it.
Well, so it started with me not getting cast in something. Actually, two things. When I was at Northwestern, Telsey Casting, which is they're sort of the biggest music theater casting company and just general casting companies in the country and probably the world. They were the casting directors of Rent and many other shows. They came to Northwestern to audition for a different project entirely. CBS was doing this like next Broadway's next thing kind of a show, and they went all around the country and auditioned college students, and like two students from each college music theater or theater program would get selected and get to come to New York to compete for this kind of national competition, and then the winner would get a walk-on role in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I did not get anywhere with that. I auditioned and was not selected to go to New York. So I was like, oh, bummer. Okay, that could have been super cool. Then also, Spring Awakening was auditioning. I wanted it so badly. They came to Chicago. I auditioned so many times. I got like 6 callbacks. Didn't get that. Heartbroken. And then Telsey, even though I didn't get that CBS thing, they kept my stuff on file, and they called me a few months later for the national tour of Rent. And I was like, oh, cool, yes. And meanwhile, I'd grown up outside of the city. I had seen Rent, countless times. We would go in, we would take the train into the city, we would wait outside the stage door, we'd get rush, $20 student rush tickets.
I just had a cassette tape of Rent, but that's really cool. Got to see it.
Did you have the highlights, or did you have the full?
I think I had both.
Yeah, you probably did. I think I did too.
Both.
and,
cassette tapes. We'll explain them to you children someday.
Yeah, we'll tell you about cassette tapes.
Tell you about them all.
And then so I was such a fan. I auditioned for the national tour, and and then shortly after that, Michael Greif, who directed Rent on Broadway, as well as Next to Normal and Dear Evan Hansen and so many awesome shows, he came to my school to work on a new piece, a new musical that Michael Friedman had written. And I was part of that workshop. And I told him at the time, I said, oh, I'm going to New York to audition for the national tour of Rent. He's like, that's great. And
good for you.
Yeah, good for you. I went and I got a call back for that. And I told Michael, he's like, okay, do you want some tips for the callback? And I said, yes, please. And he gave me some tips. And then Michael had left the school, was back in New York, and he was working on Next to Normal off Broadway. So I'm back in Chicago, he's back in New York. Then Telsey calls me and says, we're very interested in you for Rent. Do you come back for another callback for the tour? And I talked to Michael. I was like, should I do it? Like, I was so close to graduating. I was senior year. I was like beginning of senior year at this point. And he was like, you should finish school. You're so close to being done. Rent will be there for you. So I was like, okay. I called Telsey back. I was like, thank you so much. I'm going to finish school. and please keep me in mind for the future. And then a few months go by, I get a call from Telsey saying, could you please come back in for rent? I called it back and they said, again, thank you so much, but I'm almost there. Please wait for me. And then I get a voicemail from Michael saying, dummy, it's for Broadway. Get to New York. It's for my production of Rent. So I was like, oh God, okay. So I flew back to New York. I auditioned for Michael and for the creative team on a Friday. I didn't know what I went in with the scarf on there, like, take off the scarf. They're like, just don't.
You went in there like dressed as the
I
character.
tried to like be Mark. Yeah. They're like, please don't do that. Take the scarf off.
Which there are moments where they will ask you to dress in the essence of someone too, but maybe your scarf.
I went a little too far. I went a little
too dead
far.
On.
Yeah. And then a couple of days, so that was on a Friday. On Sunday, I went to see Next to Normal at Second Stage, and I see Michael at intermission, and he's in the back of the house, and he kind of waves me over. I go over to him, and he's like, did you get a call yet? And I was like, no, what do you mean? And by the way, the next day, I was flying back to school in Chicago to finish my senior year. He's like, oh, that's weird. You should have gotten a call. I was like, okay. And then he brings me over to his assistant director, who was Anthony Rapp, the original Mark in Rent.
Yes.
And he's like, Adam, this is Anthony. I was like, oh, such a big fan. So nice to meet you. And he's like, Anthony, Adam is going to be the final Mark in Rent. And that's how I found out, by meeting the original Mark. And I was like, what?
My mind is blown. This story took so many different turns.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard all of them.
No, I've never told.
Kids, that is not how that always happens. And yet I hear so many amazing things in that story, like cultivating relationships, staying true to your gut, saying I'm going to finish school, but maintaining relationships, like just auditioning for something that you didn't even know you would want, and that leads to other open doors, which is so often how we do get cast now, right? Sometimes it's not even the thing that we go in for. And right. Look at this, you were trying to get a walk on a Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Thor Leo Butts. I mean, the full circle of it all. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, so it's really, really awesome. What was one of your big, like, sweeping takeaways from that?
Yeah, no, I think you said it right. Like, you never know. I was really bummed I didn't get the Dirty Rotten walk on with CBS. I was really bummed. The Spring Awakening thing, I wanted that so badly. It was like, and even the national tour event, it was sort of bummed that I was like, oh yeah, I guess I should finish school. Like, and by the way, I did get, by that point, by the time I got the Broadway version of Rent, I had enough credits that the school gave me my degree. So it all worked out for the best.
It all works out, and you can't kind of plan it sometimes.
You've got to stick with your guns with certain things, and also know that the universe works in mysterious, strange ways. And it's a bigger thing if your heart is in the right place and your passion is there,
and you're doing the work. You're still doing the work too.
Yeah, and you're doing the work. Like, you will reap. I think you will reap the rewards in some way or another. So yeah, and then I got it, and I was like, going back to my mindset, I was terrified. I had never, and not only had I never done it professionally, but here I was alongside these people that I had so admired and had watched on stage, watched on Broadway. People like, Michael McElroy and Will Chase, who we've both worked with now, and these rock stars that there was this sort of doubt in my mind of, should I even be here? And I remember the put in rehearsal, which is like when you replace in a Broadway show. I'm telling this for those that don't know. It's like you get one rehearsal with the full performing company. You rehearse for a couple weeks. Yeah, if you're replacing in a show, you get a couple of weeks to rehearse with the stage managers, the associate music directors, the understudies come in and rehearse with you. But usually the performing cast don't always rehearse with the replacements until the put in rehearsal, when during the day the full performing company comes in, and on a lot of shows, the person who is replacing is the only one in costume. Everyone else is in their
It's
street
weird.
clothes. It's a little kind of like, it feels a little like hazing, you know? Uh, and so here I was, like, watching this company every night, and then, you know, here's this like little pisher out of college, you know, who's never acted professionally, in the Mark getup. Like, I felt like, who am I playing right now? And I was doing so, because I think a lot of times when we aren't less confident in what we're doing, we try to compensate, overcompensate, and do too. And I was
Totally.
doing so much, you know,
Yes. You
that
just want to be doing something.
yeah, especially during like
And you were
lucky.
enough.
Yeah, I was not. I did not believe that I was enough.
Mm.
So uh, at intermission of that, Michael Greif comes up to me and he's like, "Stop this self-deprecating nonsense.
Mm.
I cast you for a reason. I'm not doing you any like favors here. You know what I mean? Like, you're here because you deserve to be here, and you are the role. So just hit your mark and say your line and be honest,
And trust that it's there.
and just trust. Just know this. And then that really, like, that was a game changer, and I think I've carried that with me a
And
lot.
for Act 2, you brought out your audition scarf.
That's right.
Just wore it. Okay, that is an amazing story. I want to dive into a little bit about Fiddler on the Roof, if that's okay, and approaching a role that is so iconic in a certain way. Because, first of all, I think 99% of high schools have done Fiddler on the Roof, too. So I'm sure everyone has been like, you know, I love a 17-year-old Tevye. So, like,
I was
it's amazing.
13-year-old Tevye. No.
You were a 13-year-old Tevye?
Well, for my first role ever was Mendel the rabbi's son in 6th grade. I was, so I don't know, like 11 or something like that. And then in 8th grade in the community playhouse, I was Tevye.
This is amazing. I played Dolly Levi once at the age of 12, and then it was so good that my high school teacher was like, we should revive that for her when she's 17. So I just want to let you know the growth of my Dolly Levi. Like, when I'm actually 60, I will be nailing it.
Oh,
Anyhow,
I can't wait
okay,
for that.
so what was that like approaching? Let's talk just like a little bit about Fiddler. What was
Sure.
that like?
Yeah, I'll give a quick. I won't give a whole long story, but I mean, basically, I think one of the most meaningful things I did for that was going to Eastern Europe. I randomly had a friend of a friend that was leading this trip for artists and scholars and academics, and the timing lined up. It was like, it was just sort of perfect. So I went to Eastern Europe, and I basically went to Anatevka, and I wrote a whole piece about it, which I don't know, I'll share with BroadwayEvolved and whatever.
You're going to share with it, and then we will swipe up to it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we won't swipe up. We'll link it.
You can link it so folks can read about it. I won't give the whole thing, but I do think the element of doing research was super important, because while I felt that the piece, I knew the piece well because I'd done it twice, and because I'd seen it so many times, and really because I grew up in a Jewish family, and the piece held, you know, a lot of importance for us and for my ancestry. I still didn't know a lot about the time period and what it was like to be there in that time, and the source material, the fact that it's based off of these incredible stories by a Yiddish writer, Sholem Aleichem. So by going to the place, I felt like I was able to experience the region, images of being there, the sort of the history. It felt alive in a new way. And of course, we don't always have the luxury of being able to travel, like today, for example, but
you can't fly to Anatevka right now.
Right, can't fly to Anatevka, but there are so many resources available online. I mean, for example, with Fiddler, there's the YIVO, the Yiddish Institute, which has incredible archives on the internet. You know, we're living in an age where there's so much available to us, and I think Google is an amazing resource, and you can just go down those spirals, which I think can be really educational. And
so if someone has a role, someone gets a role, and they get a script, what is your first thing that you do with a script?
Well, I mean, I think just
from the script.
I think just like reading it over and over and over, just like without kind of judgment on anything. Um, and before you sort of dig into applying research or your own life experiences, just reading it, understanding
Just read it.
the cadence of the language, like, and not just reading through like your part. It's easy to kind of focus on, what are my lines, but I
Totally.
think getting a real sense of the fullness of the piece on the page will help access how your character fits into the whole thing, because really it's, I think, taking focus away from how should I perform this, how should it, and really the question is how do I affect the world of everything else. And
I
that
think
can,
it's so tempting to read a script and be like, "Oh, this is how I would do this," or "This is
yeah,
how I would do this," and I've totally done that before in life. And the more that I find I can strip that back, just read it a couple times, and be like, what do I want? Why am I saying this? And then also like even reading it from the other characters' perspectives, like why are they saying this to her, or um, helps
yeah,
immensely just get out of your own, because everyone needs something.
right.
Everyone wants something, and so it's
And there's
uh,
a reason why every character is on that stage, even if they don't have lines. There's you're affecting the world in some way.
correct. So
And
even
I
if
think
you're in the ensemble, you better have a story as that Munchkin.
that's
One
correct.
story in the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, and I think,
Yeah.
talking about affecting other people, you and I rehearsed last 5 years with each other, even though ultimately we didn't have each other.
Why don't you tell people about that? Because I think it's a fascinating acting tool and technique, and in a show where we were so isolated most of the time, where we're not on stage together, how do you create that sense of
Yeah.
what would it actually be like? So yes, why don't you talk about
Yeah.
us with things
Well,
you left?
like, honestly, the one of the greatest sort of compliments that I loved receive, like, I loved hearing people say after the show, you guys had great chemistry, because like we really were only together on stage for
Once.
a few moments,
Twice. Yeah.
in the next 10 minutes. But I think what I hope people were responding to was this imagined reality that we were buying into, that we were actually with each other throughout the whole thing, because and that's a testament to how Jason rehearsed us, which was literally with each other. So
We were.
to
Yeah.
to, to expand on that just for a second, like, for example, while I was rehearsing Shiksa Goddess, Betsy was with me on stage, and I was using you and your reactions, and we were listening and playing off of each other. And then finally, when we had to strip me away during when we got to tech, we had the image of each other in our minds, and it felt like, oh, I remember sort of what she was playing with me, how we were playing with each other in the room, and we, carried that with
So
our
it's
performance.
active, so it's real, right? Because otherwise you get this like stoic, like I'm just performing this and this is what I think it is. And so oftentimes, I've seen both you and I when we lead master classes, both at Broadway Evolved and in other places. I've noticed like that is a huge technique that we use. We bring in other people because it gives that sense of like, what would this actually look like? You have to put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, and I think so. Exactly, I think so. The thing when I'm coaching with you or with anybody else, like for Broadway Evolved or whomever, like it's what I love to do is ask the questions of, okay, who are you talking to? What do you want? What is your obstacle? Really treating a song, an audition song or a cabaret song, like it's a monologue, and thinking about real circumstance. And I think having had you to work with, and having such a talented actor to play off of was really, really helpful in like shaping those songs. And
I
you,
like to think I gave you everything.
you
I like
did,
to
you
think I
did.
provided it all. Speaking of which, that brings us to a great question that we got last night. Super important question. Does Jamie regret cheating on Kathy?
My phone just fell.
I want it answered. For now is the time. I want it answered.
Kathy, it's a complicated thing.
Is it?
Jamie
Is
and
it
Kat,
complicated?
there's wrong, right,
Mm.
good, bad. It's hard to look at it in such a binary way. It lives where everything else lives in the gray.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. Okay, moving on. Oh my gosh. Okay, I like this one. What is the best piece of advice you can give for auditioning?
I think, well, it's something that I learned going back to the Ren story. One is that you are enough. You know, don't try to emulate somebody else. And listen, if you're auditioning, let's just say to auditioning for a show that already exists, like to replace in a show, or a
Mhm.
regional production of something, or a school production of a show that has existed for a long time. Don't like. I would steer away from trying to copy the cast recording. I would really look at how do you connect with the role. How what of your own life experience can you draw on, and how does that connect with the character? Really make it your own, because
Yeah,
nobody wants to see somebody trying to imitate somebody else. That your truth
yeah.
will impact the audience more than an attempted imitation will.
And I'd say also now more than ever, casting directors and directors are not seeking at all a replication of what's been done before. In fact, it's like almost like gone so far in the opposite direction of we want to see something completely different. So, um, find the truth of the character, find the truth of what it is for you, and then
Yeah.
bring some of yourself to it.
We got a question here too.
Oh yeah,
Luke,
answer a
please
question.
elaborate on the importance of seeing those places in person. Um, I think the question is regarding the Fiddler, going to the Fiddler. I think it was, with that specifically, going to Eastern Europe. It was a connection of images in my mind. If I was in the show and felt like I'm not really in it right now, or I need to connect deeper, to sort of just put myself there for a second, literally the landscape for one, and then beyond that, just this idea of, for that show, oh, I'm a descendant of an immigrant, and the heart of what that means, and how that fueled that process. Oh, we got another question.
I love this question. Can I read
Yeah,
one?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What kind of art do you think we should be making during these really trying times?
Ooh.
I know.
I don't.
I have so many thoughts on that.
I mean, I think in general, I don't know that there's ever like we should be making this kind of art. I think the same thing applies of
Mm-hmm.
what feels organic to
To
you,
you.
as opposed
Yes.
to like, this is what I think what should be made right now. I think it's about getting quiet for a second, and now we have the ability to be even more quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Getting and asking, what is it that I just need to say right now, and how do I feel like I
I
need to
love
say
that. Yeah, I love that. And only you can answer that for you. And that's something that we talk about all the time too in these summer sessions is what I contribute is going to look very different than what you do, and that is what makes us unique. That is truly why we are individuals and why we need to be ourselves, because only if we are truly being ourselves too and collectively adding to it, does it fill with all sorts of different things. So
And then,
uh,
talking about being quiet, we have a question. Can you talk about the band's visit? Missing those days a lot. Can't believe it's been nearly a year.
I
Um,
love that. The band's visit, new role, originating a role. It's obviously very different than Model or Jamie.
yeah, and I think for me, and specifically in that, like what I was doing in that show was very quiet. The show at large was quiet, and I was
Mm-hmm.
very quiet for a lot of it until
Very
until the end. Because I was staring at a phone. But I think with that, and with a lot of shows, even just in the preparation of it, meditation and like yoga has been a big thing for me. Sort of just getting quiet for a second, connecting with body, with alignment, with breath. I think had I not been doing yoga for like many years before that, I'm not sure how I would have gone through it, because so much of that process
interesting.
for me was just like connecting with breath, being okay with being so still for so long, um, and just sort of getting quiet. And so I think that kind of tool, even though that ended up being my performance in the band's visit, it really was a reflection, I think, of preparation for a lot of other shows, if that makes sense.
I love that. And you probably didn't know when you were starting yoga in your life or meditation that would be something that would come into play and be so helpful and fruitful during a Broadway show, which is why we always encourage people, if something's pulling at you, go explore it. You never know when that
Right.
will come in handy.
Yeah.
I like to think too, when I was watching the band's visit, that you were, Jamie, thinking about calling Kathy to apologize. Anyways,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No,
just,
absolutely.
just like a side thought that could have been
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
internal thoughts.
Not to.
Um, you are amazing. Is there anything that you want to like finish off with and say?
Just that I love you, and I thank you for. I think it's so awesome that you're doing this with Broadway Evolved, and keeping folks like me and folks that are watching engaged and inspired.
Well, I appreciate that. We couldn't do it without you and all the artists that are in this community together. I think we're going to come out of this stronger, and we're going to make art, whatever that is. Really, it's unique to each of us. And yeah, it helps us get through the days right now. Keep using your hand sanitizer, everybody, and
Take
wash
your
your
vitamin D drops.
all the things, and be well, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye. Thank you. Okay, I'm closing out. You have to too, Adam.
All right, bye.
Bye, Jean.